In this video we're going to look at the limit at a vertical asymptote. So 1 over x will have a vertical asymptote here. 1 over x squared will have a vertical asymptote here. So here, what is the limit of 1 over x as x approaches 0 from the left hand side? So this minus sign here implies from the left hand side. So approach 0 from the left hand side. So here you're heading all the way down here. So that will have a limit of negative infinity. Now approach 0 from the right hand side only. So a positive sign would mean approach it from the right hand side. So from the right hand side, approach 0. Here you can see that the limit is actually positive infinity. Without a sign, so there's no sign here, just approach 0. Now you've got to consider approaching 0 from both sides. So from both sides, from the left hand side you're heading towards negative infinity. If you approach 0 from the right hand side, you're approaching positive infinity. So here you've got to consider both sides. So that means here one shoots down, one shoots up. Do the two meet? No, they don't meet. So we say the limit is d and e, does not exist. With one side only, we say the limit is negative infinity. From one side only, this is positive infinity. But from both sides, it's d and e. Okay, so now consider 1 over x. From the left hand side only, so approach 0 from the left hand side only. So here the limit is infinity. Now approach 0 from the right hand side only. So from the right hand side only. So now right hand side only. So you can see that the limit is infinity. Now consider the limit from both sides. So from the left hand side it's infinity. From the right hand side it's also infinity. So we say here the limit is also infinity, because I know when you talk about limits you're expecting a definite number here, but in this case here the whole maths community came to an agreement that I know you're expecting a number here, but let's just call it infinity. It helps us, it enables us to communicate that from the left hand side it's heading towards infinity, from the right hand side it also heads towards infinity. So let's come to an agreement that the limit here is infinity. Okay, so now consider this graph. So looking at this graph, when you get a graph plotter and plot it, it will look like this. So we know there's a vertical asymptote at whenever the denominator equals 0, you're going to have a vertical asymptote. Here you can see that the vertical asymptote exists at 0, because when you put 0 into here, the whole denominator equals 0. So you're going to have 1 over 0. So it's going to be you're going to have a vertical asymptote here and at positive 2. So now so if you look at this, at 2, the limit, as x approaches 2, the limit would be d and e, because one shoots up. Because if you approach it from the left hand side, so you would start here and then you would walk towards 2. So you would walk towards 2. All of a sudden you jump over here and continue in your journey here. And then here you can see that you're heading towards negative infinity. But then if you approach 2 from the right hand side, you're heading towards positive infinity. So here we say the limit is d n e. Whereas down here, as x approaches 0, you're heading towards negative infinity. Now approach 0 from the right hand side. All of a sudden you jump down to here, continue in your journey. Here you're also heading towards negative infinity. And when you consider both sides, we say that the limit here is negative infinity. So given a random rational function, how can you tell if one shoots up, one shoots down, or if they're both shoots down in the same direction? Sometimes they both shoots up in the same direction. So given a random rational function, how can you tell? For example, if I were to give you y equals I don't know, negative 3 over x to the power 3, and then how can you tell? We know that it breaks down at 0. We know that it breaks down at 2. How can you tell if it shoots up and shoots up, or if one shoots up and one shoots down. How can you tell? So let's look at this now. Let's consider this bit here. So you've got two blocks here, 1, 2, just to the right of 2. So imagine 2.1. Just well, in reality, you should consider a really small number, but for simplicity, let's just imagine 2.1. When you put 2.1 into here, just to the right hand side, this block is going to be positive, because 2.1 take away 2 is going to give you a positive number. It's going to give you a positive number. Just to the left, let's say 1.999. 1.999 take away 2 is going to give you a negative, because 1.999 is take away 2 is going to give you a negative number. So this block here is sometimes positive and sometimes negative. When you're at, even if you're at 2.1, and when you square it, this is always going to be positive. Just to the left of 2, 1.999999, when you square it, it's always going to be positive. So this block here is always going to be always going to be positive. So this, well, it's sometimes positive, sometimes negative. So you know one's going to shoot up, one's going to shoot down. Now consider when x equals 0. When x equals 0, this block here will always be negative. Hang on, just to the right of 0. Let's say 0.00001. When you put it into here, into this block, 0.00001 take away 2, it will always be a negative. This block here will always be a negative. It will always be a negative. Now consider just to the left of 0, negative 0.00001, say. If you put this into here, negative 0.00001 take away 2, this thing here will always be negative. So the point here is that around this region here, this block here will always be negative for sure, always be negative. Now if you look at this, just to the right of 0, 0.0001, when you square it, it will always be positive. If you consider this, negative 0.0001, and then when you square it, it will always be positive. So this thing here will always be positive, because you're squaring it, always be positive. So around this region, to the right and to the left, this thing will always be negative. This thing here will always be positive. So therefore, you know it's going to shoot down in both directions, because you've got one negative here. So that's one way you can tell, by analyzing it like that. Okay, so anyway, think about it. That's one way you can tell if one shoots up or both shoots up or whatever. Okay.